If you've heard that bee pollen can help with hay fever, there's something you need to know before you try it. If you're allergic to pollen, bee pollen could actually trigger an allergic reaction. And that's just one of the important differences between bee pollen and propolis. They both come from the hive, and you'll often see them sold alongside each other, but they're actually very different products. Bee pollen is mainly about nutrition. Propolis is more about protection. And if you take certain blood-thinning medicines, there's also a reason to be careful with propolis. I'll explain that later. But first, there's a really simple way to remember the difference between the two. Bee pollen feeds the hive, propolis protects it. Bees collect pollen from flowers and carry it back to the hive as food. It's an important source of nutrients for the colony. Propolis is completely different. Bees collect sticky resins from plants and mix them with wax and other substances. They use this sticky material to seal small gaps and cracks in the hive and help protect it. That's why you'll sometimes hear propolis called bee glue. So just remember, pollen equals nutrition, propolis equals protection. And that simple difference also explains why people use these two products in very different ways. Let's start with bee pollen. This is normally what you'll see sold as those little yellow, orange, or brown granules. People add them to yogurt, porridge, smoothies, or salads. And bee pollen can certainly add some extra nutrients to your diet. It contains protein, carbohydrates, some fats, and fiber. It can also contain vitamins, minerals, and different antioxidant plant compounds. So yes, it can be a nutritious food. But this is where some of the marketing can become a little misleading. Bee pollen is sometimes described almost like a natural multivitamin. I wouldn't really think of it that way. The amount of nutrients in bee pollen can vary quite a lot. It depends on which flowers the bees visited, where the pollen came from, the time of year, and even how it was stored. So one batch of bee pollen could be quite different from another. You can't look at a spoonful and know exactly how much vitamin B6, magnesium, zinc, or any other nutrient you're getting. That's very different from taking a supplement where the label tells you exactly how much of a particular nutrient is in each serving. So before you go out and buy a huge jar thinking it's going to cover your vitamin and mineral needs, I would think of bee pollen much more simply. It's a nutrient-rich food topper. If you like it, you can sprinkle a little over your food. But I wouldn't rely on it to correct a deficiency or treat a health problem. Now, propolis is quite different. You don't normally buy propolis to sprinkle over breakfast. You'll see it in things like throat sprays, lozenges, tinctures, mouthwashes, creams, and balms. And there's a reason for that. Propolis contains lots of different plant compounds, including flavonoids and phenolic compounds. Some of these have been studied for antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects. In simple terms, researchers are interested in whether propolis can affect certain microbes and inflammation. And there are a few areas where the research looks interesting. Studies looking at propolis mouthwashes suggest they may help reduce dental plaque and gum inflammation. Propolis has also been studied for sore throats and mild respiratory symptoms. One study looked at adults using a propolis throat spray and found that their symptoms cleared more quickly than in the placebo group. That is interesting. But there is an important catch. Propolis isn't one standard product. Its composition can change depending on which plants the bees collected the resin from and how the product was made. So if one particular propolis spray works well in a study, that doesn't automatically mean every propolis spray you buy will do exactly the same thing. That's something worth remembering when you see health claims on the front of a bottle. Propolis has also been researched for use on the skin, including wound healing. But again, that doesn't mean I would start treating a serious wound at home with propolis. For deep wounds, infected wounds, or anything that isn't healing properly, you need proper medical care. So what about immune support? This is probably one of the main reasons people become interested in bee products in the first place. If I had to choose between bee pollen and propolis specifically for immune-related support, propolis is the more relevant one. There is more research looking at propolis and its effects on microbes, inflammation, and different parts of the immune response. But I would still be careful with claims that propolis boosts your immune system. That phrase gets used a lot with supplements. It can make it sound as though taking something like propolis will stop you catching colds or keep you from getting ill. We don't have good enough evidence to say that. Bee pollen works differently. It gives you nutrients and plant compounds, and good nutrition is obviously important for your immune system. But that doesn't mean taking bee pollen will prevent illness. So if you're choosing between the two for immune support, propolis is the more interesting option. Just keep your expectations realistic. Now let's come back to the hay fever claim from the beginning. You may have heard that eating bee pollen can help your body gradually get used to pollen and reduce your allergy symptoms. At first, that sounds quite logical. But there is an important problem with that idea. Taking bee pollen is not the same as allergy immunotherapy. With proper allergy immunotherapy, controlled amounts of specific allergens are given under medical supervision. Bee pollen supplements can contain pollen from many different plants. And if you're already allergic to pollen, eating bee pollen could actually trigger an allergic reaction. There have even been published reports of serious reactions, including anaphylaxis, after people have taken bee pollen. That doesn't mean everyone who takes bee pollen is going to have a serious reaction. But if you have hay fever or a known pollen allergy, I certainly wouldn't use bee pollen as a DIY version of allergy treatment. And what about propolis? There has been some early research into possible anti-allergy effects. But we don't have strong enough evidence to recommend propolis as a treatment for hay fever either. And propolis can cause allergic reactions too. Skin reactions, particularly contact dermatitis, are one of the known problems. So if your main reason for considering either of these products is hay fever, I wouldn't say that either one is an obvious choice. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's a specific caution if you're taking blood-thinning medication such as warfarin. Research in animals suggests that propolis might interfere with how warfarin works. And warfarin is a medicine where the dose needs to be carefully controlled. So this isn't something you want to guess at. We don't have enough human research to know exactly how important the interaction is, but if you take warfarin or another blood thinner, speak to your doctor or pharmacist before using propolis. And if you're using propolis on your skin, testing a small amount on a small area first can be sensible. There's also one simple thing I would do if you've never tried either product before. Don't start both at the same time. Try one first. That way, if you do have a reaction, you've got a much better idea which product caused it. So which one should you choose? So let's make this really simple. If you want something to add to food for some extra nutrients and plant compounds, bee pollen makes more sense. Think of it as food rather than medicine. If you're interested in something more targeted for your mouth, throat, or skin, propolis has more relevant research behind it. For immune-related support, propolis is also the more interesting of the two, although I wouldn't expect it to stop you getting ill. And for hay fever, I wouldn't rely on either one. I would be particularly cautious with bee pollen if you already have a pollen allergy. So there really isn't one overall winner. The better question is, what are you actually trying to use it for? And if you remember just one thing from this video, remember this. Bee pollen feeds. Propolis protects. I've linked my full bee pollen versus propolis guide below if you want to look at the research in more detail. And if you like simple, evidence-based nutrition and supplement advice without the health hype, subscribe to Be Healthy now.